here this evening, talking about, again, the topic of mental health. Last night we had the amazing music artist Pia Renee and myself. We kind of had a dialogue about being an artist and how the creative mind works and some of the obstacles that having the right or wrong mental health, posture can affect that. So that was a really cool conversation. And thanks to everybody who joined in on that. So today and tonight, I have the beautiful Ariel Myrie here, and she is. I do not want to jack up your credentials because mother has paperwork. Okay. So I'm going to let her give her full credentials, but I do know that she is a licensed professional counselor. So it was important for me to have this kind of conversation with someone that's actually like in the industry and can speak from a professional standpoint, because I know a lot of times we can get all of these live chats and all these things happening, and it's not necessarily proven information, and people are just kind of sharing their opinion. So I definitely wanted to bring in somebody that kind of knows more, like from a very professional standpoint. And so I have you here. So please introduce yourself and just tell the people a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your role in that mental health world.
Yes, thank you so much also just for inviting me to be here. I love what you're doing. I was very excited. But yes, so I am Ariel Myrie. I'm a licensed professional counselor, also a certified personal trainer. I currently work at a private practice called Cherry Hill Counseling, and I also do trainings as well. But my passion within like the mental health field specifically is like holistic health. So meaning, how does, your physical health impact your mental health, vice versa, and even like what you eat, how does that affect your mental health? So we're definitely not just mental beings, not just physical beings. And so I'm definitely interested into like how all of those are intertwined and how to help people heal in all those ways. So
awesome. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that you mentioned like the integration of not just the standard of what we think mental health is, through counseling there, but there are other elements that affect our minds. So we're definitely going to get into that. And in the meantime, you all, of course, if you have questions, you can drop them in and I'm going to jump in and grab them as we go and just kind of have an open conversation about some things. But I think that I really was excited about having this conversation because we kind of chatted about it before. And one of the things that came up was the fact that there are so many myths about mental health, a lot of things that people think are accurate that aren't, and a lot of things that maybe keep people away from pursuing different mental health maintenance and doing things like that because of what they think about that mental health space or whatever. So I'm sure you've heard a lot of them just coming across and all that. But I think that for me, I think what I've heard, or even what I've used to think at one point, I think the main one is that if you are pursuing any kind of counseling or therapy, that it's because you're crazy or something is off or wrong with you. So what do you say to that, to people that don't pursue any type of mental health maintenance because of that?
yeah, and I definitely understand that because I feel like at some point I was conditioned to think that way as well. So it's definitely like it's a common myth, and I still hear it a lot, but it's just not the case. If you go to therapy, that does not mean, oh, I'm crazy now, or is there something wrong with me? And like, it just makes people not want to go because who wants to feel like that? But if you want to go to therapy, you want to better yourself, you want to heal, from things that happened in your past or for something you're currently going through. You have goals that you want to work towards, like emotionally. There are so many different reasons why one can want to seek therapy, and it's not like solely, oh, I'm crazy. And all of that negativity. And I am glad that over this past year, the stigma is breaking a little bit because more people, celebrities especially, are coming out and saying like, oh, I go to therapy or I do this. And mental health is becoming just like more people are used to hearing it now.
Yeah.
And so people are more willing to step out and try it. So I'm definitely glad for that.
Yeah, no, that's very true, because I think that also, for those that don't know, I'm a music artist. So this was something that was important to me because I think for such a long time, there was not a lot of conversation for creative people about maintaining their mental health. And when I found myself, kind of hitting a wall creatively, and that affecting, that being a part of my personal life, those kind of not crossing too well because of what I was dealing with mentally, and me even having to seek out, going to counseling and taking that seriously. It was just important to kind of have this conversation across the board to show that there's not even like a personality type that needs to go to
Right.
counseling or therapy, that it's for everyone, whatever like your personal goals are. It's something that anybody can pursue, and no matter how, whatever we think our strengths or weaknesses are, like there is a role and there's a place for us to like manage our mental health. So that's something that I kind of took personally, and I wanted to share that, even from me being a music artist, like it's something that we should probably be talking more about. So I kind of just wanted to use my platform in this space, in this month being Mental Health Awareness Month, to kind of speak to those things as well. So that's really good to know. So for those that are watching, there is no therapy for crazy people only, or whatever you want to call that. It's not a thing. Everybody can go.
Yeah, even therapists themselves like will have therapists. So it's such a heavy job. It is a heavy job. And I am like, I can use a therapist. Anybody can have a therapist. I've been to therapy before. So can definitely break that stigma of it's only for crazy people. It's not.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And so what about, well, I guess we can say, because there is an element in at any point, because I am not a professional, I am just out here trying to figure out life. So you can correct me at any point. The difference between maybe therapy and counseling as it relates to, like getting therapy for like a condition that may require medication, or it's something like that. Is there like a solid difference between I'm going to a therapist or I'm going to counseling, and what do they look like versus each other?
Yeah. So they're kind of used interchangeably, those terms like counseling and therapy. Some people can say like, okay, counseling is seen as more short term. So say I'm going specifically because like I want help with like this relationship, this breakup I just been through. And then therapy could be used as like long term. So I'm as a therapist asking about like your past, where it's a more lengthy process. But more frequently it's used interchangeably. So you can say, oh, I have a therapy session, I'm going to counseling, but typically it means the same thing. And usually if you are like going for something more short term, like say going through a relationship, more often than not, as a therapist, I will dig into the background a little bit, because a lot of what we face right now in the present is affected by our past. And so it all comes together. And so I think for the most part, it's used interchangeably. And as far as
Okay.
yeah, as far as medication goes, if I have clients who may be on medication, but that's what more so a psychiatrist is for. So they prescribe the medication, things like that. My role is more so like talk therapy, interventions, and things of that nature.
Okay. So then does a psychiatrist have those like, do they have more of those weekly conversations, or whatever, or is it more so like I've spoken to someone else and they've sent me here to kind of figure out what I need medically?
Yeah, they're more so like you'll have an assessment with them, and then they'll see, okay, do you have like this condition, and could you benefit from this specific medication? And then from there, you'd meet with them to like up your dosage or come down on the dosage. So they're like all things medication, but they will do an assessment to make sure you need to be medicated or not. And then weekly, you'd have sessions with like your therapist or your counselor.
Okay, got it. Okay, so now what do you say to the person? Because I've also heard it said, and I'm guilty of thinking this at one point in my life too, that I can figure it out. Like I don't need another person to tell me anything. Like I can just, go through it out. Eventually it'll be okay. What is the benefit, you would say, to externally seeking out help in that way, especially from someone that you don't know personally, like not a family member, not a friend? What is the benefit in doing that part?
Yeah, that's another common one.
Mhm.
Just the fact that, you're speaking with the stranger, or it's like, I don't know you, or am I telling you all my business? But the benefit of it, one, is that it's unbiased. So whereas if you were to talk to a friend or a family member, most likely it's going to be some bias there. Can they be unbiased? Yes, but most likely there's bias there. So speaking with a trained professional who is a stranger, who you don't previously have any type of relationship with, you're getting an unbiased, hopefully raw and real opinion or perspective, more so on what you're going through. And just trying to figure out everything on your own is like exhausting, and you only get your perspective. So it's like, are you really like learning? Are you really seeing things from a bigger picture? So definitely getting that change in perspective is helpful from like an unbiased source.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know for sure. So I think that probably maybe one of the bigger ones, and maybe this is a big one that you hear also too, is that it's for rich people, or I can't afford it, or I can't, invest in something like that right now. What are some things that maybe people don't know about the cost of, seeking therapy and resources that may be available to them?
And I love it because these are all like so
Yeah.
like so true, like not true in the sense that they're true, but like they're so common, and so I'm glad we're doing this. But so it's 3 different options and probably more, but the top 3 would be if you have like any type of insurance, just like you go to a doctor and they cover like a certain percentage, they do the same thing with therapy sessions. So if you have insurance, most likely you're going to get a good chunk of that covered by your insurance, and you just have like a copay or something like that. Also, most therapists, like, they can offer a sliding fee scale. And so what that means is, say, I'm meeting with you for our first session. You tell me I don't have insurance, or they aren't willing to cover it for some reason. And so I work with you to see what could you realistically afford given your situation right now. So you can tell me, only about $30 a session. And I can make the decision as a professional to say, you know what, I'm still going to take you on, or I'm willing to work with you. Am I making less money? Yes, but at the same time, if I really want to help you, and hopefully if you are a therapist, you have that heart for people, you can look beyond that. So definitely ask about sliding scales fees, because most therapists will be willing to work with you. The other thing is pro bono work, and that basically means working for free. So if it was a situation where it's like I can't I can't afford anything for whatever reason, ethically we are like kind of required, and I don't know if I want to say required, but recommended to do some level of pro bono work where you do take on cases for free. So I would definitely ask about those 2 options if you don't have insurance, or for whatever reason it doesn't cover therapy sessions. Just know that you're not out there alone. Like, there's resources for that.
Okay. Okay, cool. So then it's a matter of just like doing some research, finding someone you may want to meet with, and then just kind of having a conversation like, hey, I would like to move forward, but financially I have these obstacles.
Yeah.
Can you work with me, kind of thing?
And not all
Okay.
therapists will, so I'm not going to
Yeah.
just say like all therapists will, not all therapists will, but you can find some that are willing to work with you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. I think we have, well, it's a comment here from 2050 Reggie that says, I need a therapist, had one as a child, my family and I did, but it didn't work then, maybe it works now. So that kind of brings up a point to where, how do you gauge when to go into that space of I need to go to therapy? Like, how do you gauge it? Or to say, I've been to therapy, maybe I can pull back, or I don't need to go as frequently or anymore, if that's the thing. So how can one kind of assess when they should probably pursue therapy at a certain point in their life?
Yeah. I mean, first I would just suggest, I think everybody should go to therapy or try therapy at some point in their lives. But if you want to gauge it by like something particular, I would say if you have anything in your life that's like causing you some level of distress to the point where like it's affecting you daily, or you have like certain thoughts that's going through your mind that's really bringing down your mood. If you're thinking like, should I go to therapy? That could be a sign that yes, you should go to therapy. You should try it out. Those are definitely ways to kind of gauge, is it for me? But I would just say try it out, because you don't really have anything to lose. Some people do have bad experiences, and to that I would just say try again. I know it is hurtful, but there are therapists out there that will work for you. Um, and so just, I think we'll get into that later, but like how to select the right therapist, what specific things do you want to look for in a therapist, what's important to you. And as far as your second question was, oh, how do you like know when you can stop or pull back?
Yeah.
Um, so I had a client actually recently who I've been seeing him for about 10 sessions. And he can, after a certain while, like we'll kind of recap to say, okay, what areas do you feel like you've grown in? Do you feel like, you met this goal? And he did, like, he felt like he has seen growth in himself. His anger had improved a lot. And so was ready to kind of put a pause on it until maybe something else happened or he felt like he needed to continue sessions. So you can kind of come to that conclusion with your therapist. Like, I think I'm all right for now, or I just want to put a pause on it and see how you are. You can always reach back out. So
have you ever had any experiences where someone did say, hey, I think I'm gonna pull back, but you're like, I don't think you need to do that right now? And like, how do you kind of have that conversation, or how can you tell the difference maybe between someone who's just not doing their work on their end to like make it beneficial for them?
Yeah, I would definitely, like, that's the thing I like about therapy is it is like really intimate and you get to, your clients let you into a vulnerable space, right? So you built this therapeutic relationship with the client. So just being able to challenge or kind of confront areas that they may not see. So if somebody was to tell me like, oh, I think I'm good, I don't need to, come to therapy anymore, I would just kind of push back and insert what I am observing. And hopefully, like from there, they'd be able to kind of trust my professional opinion and stick with it. Luckily, I haven't had that happen yet. So, yeah, that's what I would do in that situation.
Okay. Because I know when I first started, I went to counseling. I don't even remember when I started, but my very first experience, there was a reason why I went. So it was a little bit easier to like get into it because there's like a definite point of I'm here because, and then there have been moments where it's like, I don't necessarily have an issue, but I do feel like I need to kind of make sure that I'm maintaining the right mindset. And I know for me, it can be challenging to completely open up like right away, because I feel like trying to get to that place sometimes it is hard. So from the perspective of someone that's like pursuing counseling, is there something that maybe from your eyes, from what you see and experience, that could be helpful to someone to know, like, hey, when you go into a counseling session, have these kind of things in mind so that you can kind of open up more or make it more comfortable for you? Or what are some things that maybe someone could know that would benefit them to be able to get the most out of that experience?
Talking about just like first time, like first session, or just in general?
Yeah, so like, let's say someone is apprehensive. I've never been to counseling, but I think I'll try it. But opening up, because I mean, they show you stuff on TV sometimes where people get counseling, they're like, I don't want to say nothing to you. You ain't my mom, all that stuff. But like, what are some tips, I guess you could say, for someone going into it for the first time, or maybe haven't been in a long time, to like give themselves permission to like be able to get the most out of the experience?
I would say, I don't know, trying to, I guess, your best to relax as much as possible, and also getting a feel of your therapist, because at the same time, you do have the right to say, I don't think I connect with you as a therapist, or for some reason, you may not feel comfortable with that particular therapist. So as much as the therapist is like also trying to like learn your background, learn about you, you can also ask the therapist questions and you can see whether or not you want to kind of stick with them. But just kind of have an idea of what do I want to work on, or what's something that I may want to discuss, and just feeling free to tell your therapist, like, I am kind of nervous and I don't know if I want to start with like maybe deeper issues just yet. Just being open and honest with like your apprehensions, and we can understand for sure. Because like I said, therapy isn't always easy. Like it is a vulnerable space to be.
Yeah.
And so we definitely get that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that it's actually commendable, like when we take that or we make that decision to pursue, going to counseling and therapy, it takes a lot of courage, I believe. And so a lot of times we go into that setting or not giving ourselves enough grace to like, hey, this is not something that everybody openly just wants to do, and that and that's okay, and that's normal. So I guess that will kind of lead to the question of the person or the individual who has been through stuff maybe throughout the course of their life, and doesn't necessarily, maybe they don't see a need for therapy, but it's really more of they've kind of developed their own kind of coping mechanisms. So what can you say to how unanswered or unhealed traumas affect us like throughout our life? Because sometimes people say, well, this happened when I was a child, so I'm an adult now, so it's fine, it's over with, so how do you kind of encourage people in that space?
Mm-hmm. Unhealed and like unaddressed trauma, it's very frequent. Like you definitely hear about it a lot. Just as a therapist, it could be something that someone could be coming to counseling for, I don't know, like anger issues or like depression or just anything else. And as the more sessions I have with them, they open up and say like, oh, this happened in my childhood, or I think this may have something to do with it. And in my head, I'm like, yes, like, yes, like this,
Yeah.
like we're getting somewhere. And so oftentimes it's like walking around with an open wound. It's, if you never address it, it's going to stay with you. And that cycle is going to continue. That's where we get like generational curses and just, we all heard the saying, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And so like just never healing, it's hard to ever grow from that. And you just kind of open up the can to like a lot of other problems. So definitely best to address it, and you can do it in a safe environment when you find and are comfortable with therapists.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's really good, because I think that even now, because like I said, I'm in counseling like now, like I'll be, on the Zoom next week, but I think that one thing that it did show me is I was kind of trying to manage the now, like, I'm doing this and I need to do this and get there and get to that place, but not really looking back to see how that stuff is affecting the stuff I'm trying to get to now. And I think that that's like really telling, and you can kind of elaborate this a little on this a little bit more, but what are your thoughts, or what information can you give about the concept of arrested development for those that have experienced something at a particular age, and even though they're older, they're still kind of in that same place of trauma from whatever that occurred?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know why this thought this, I don't want to use this person as an example. It was a celebrity, but you just really, so you never grow past that point. So say you were sexually abused as a child, and then as an adult, you find yourself maybe abusing somebody else sexually, or you find yourself in a habit of like sex addiction or anything like that. You can trace it back to that traumatic experience that you had that was probably never dealt with, or just hard like to heal through that. And so those are definitely examples of how it can stay with you, how something can stay with you and you not really realize. Somebody can wonder like, why am I like this? Or I just don't know why I'm struggling with this issue. And it could very well be because of something that happened to you. And that's where the hurt people, that's kind of an example of that. It's like something happened to you, you were hurt, you went through life just kind of trying to cope and get through with it, maybe forget about it, ignore it, not address it. And now later on in life, you're kind of experiencing these behaviors or thoughts that's linked back to something that happened in your past. So.
Yeah, that's really good. That's something that I learned about that term some years back, and it just kind of resonated and made so much sense, because I think a lot of times we are functioning as adults and we can be thriving in our careers. We can have, our family or whatever, our goals met and all that stuff. But doing it from a place of, you know, that arrested place and not really getting to our full potential. And I know that there are people like that I've encountered, people that I know that they literally do, like, you might be 36 years old, but you really act like you're 16.
Yeah.
Like, what happened when you were 16? Because the way you talk or the way that you respond to things, it's like you act like a little kid.
Right.
Yeah, but you're an adult. So it's like, when I learned about that, I'm like, that makes so much sense for a lot of people. And I think a lot of us are dealing with that and living through that, not realizing like, hey, you probably had a traumatic experience at a younger age that literally has stopped you, even though your body is still growing, like you're still, you know, advancing in your age, but you are mentally kind of emotionally just stuck in a place. So
that's where
that's
therapy. So say you didn't know that, or you never heard of Arrested Development, and you were to come to my office and tell me about like these things that happened to you in your past, and you're coming to me for sex addiction, I would be able to kind of put two and two together and maybe educate you about Arrested Development. Now it's like, oh, like this is why this happens. And those are those revelation moments that can happen in counseling where it's like, okay, I'm glad I'm in therapy, and you're just learning terms and things that you didn't know before. So
yeah, that's really, really good. So that actually kind of brings me kind of segue into another area. So what about those of us who maybe we are in counseling and we're thriving in that place, or we're prioritizing our self-care in certain ways, but we identify to some degree, maybe in our family members, in our friends, like, hey, this person, you know, seems like they have some stuff going on. Maybe they could benefit from being in counseling, but I don't know how to tell them that. Like, you need to go to therapy, because, you know, we see it thrown off as like a way to like clap back at somebody, like you need to, you know, but like, how do you honestly say like, no, for real, let me help you find someone to talk to, because at this point, you know, it's a lot going on. So how do we do that in a kind way to really encourage someone to seek out, you know, that kind of therapy?
Mm-hmm. In a kind way, because it is like, even when you say that, like, oh, you need therapy, like we're used to hearing that said, and it's almost become like kind of like a joke, or like you said, like a clap back, or somebody coming at me because they say that. But if you are somebody who has experienced therapy, or you're currently in it, I would encourage just being vulnerable and saying like, oh, this is something that has worked for me. I think it could benefit you. Like, you should check it out, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. This is how you can find a therapist in your area. Start by dispelling some of those myths, because just kind of assume that the person you're saying it to has these myths and stigmas about mental health in mind, and just kind of break them and educate them like, oh, it's actually not that expensive. Do you have insurance? Oh, you don't? Oh, ask your therapist about sliding scales, pro bono work. So the more you know about the process, the more you can kind of advocate for therapy to someone. So I suggest maybe, and then also probably not putting people on blast and saying it in front of a lot of people. So make it a private conversation. And if you're coming from your heart and being genuine, I think the delivery of it can be received better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's really good. So y'all out there, don't be coming for your friends and like waiting for y'all to get in an argument and going out, you need a therapist, you need to go to counseling, you crazy, you know. But don't do that. Yeah. So, okay, let's have another question in here. It says, is it okay to go into therapy not knowing what your issues or traumas are, but you're feeling like something is off, or you have feelings that you can't explain? Should you just go in open to help and change?
Absolutely. As a therapist, I do not expect my clients to come in and say, oh, this happened to me because this happened to me when I was a child, and this, you know, have it all figured out. You absolutely do not have to have it all figured out. A therapist is trained to like ask you particular questions, and to just have a conversation flow to the point of those things coming out naturally. And so you definitely don't feel like you have to have already pieced everything together and make it make sense. You don't have to make it make sense. So definitely feel free to be open and to just communicate what you feel and what you're able to at the moment.
And probably even just saying that too, like something don't feel 100% right, but I'm trying to uncover and unpack what that is, and kind of like having that conversation. And I think it's even also giving it a chance to come out, because like I said, for me, out the door, I didn't necessarily know like, oh, it's this and this,
Yeah.
and that's it. So like it took a few more sessions for me to like finally begin to like completely open up and all that. So I think that if you give yourself the time to like get in the presence of someone that can help you and kind of have those conversations with you, it'll start to unlock like little by little as well. That's at least what I know works for me.
That's true. That's absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So I think if you all have any other questions, please continue to drop them in. I was thinking about how you kind of tapped into it a little bit earlier, because you're like multifaceted in your skill set. Let's talk about how other things outside of the conversation of going to counseling, other things that affect your mental health that we may not think of. We may just think that, oh, it's just about the way that I think, and that's it. So whatever's wrong with me is because of what I thought about this or that. What other things are we doing in our lives or to ourselves or to our bodies are affecting our ability to have a healthy mindset?
Yes. So first, just starting with I guess food. So like what we eat, that affects your mental health. I know within the African American culture, like we have the term of like itis, like you get the itis after eating the soul food or just like a lot of food. You get the itis. That's basically, for people who don't know it, you get sleepy or tired. And so with that, it's like, it's a science to it. Certain foods are heavy, or they have like, sugar in it, and it's just like too much to the point where we get tired. So that's a good example of how what you're eating is affecting your mood. If you're like only eating fast food, not saying you can't have it every now and then, but if like you have a poor diet, that's going to affect like the way you think, how you feel. You'll be more lethargic, like, I don't feel like doing X, Y, and Z. And so just paying more attention to what I eat and how I feel after it. So sometimes I'll have my clients do a food mood diary for a little bit, like a week or so, and just kind of paying attention to, okay, I ate this, and then I noticed afterwards I started feeling like this way. I ate this, and then afterwards I felt pretty good, like I felt energetic. And that can be a good way to kind of just gauge how, your food is affecting your mood.
Okay, so now that also makes me think about, how they tell us on TV, when you are in a relationship and it goes south, you have to get ice cream and eat ice cream and all of that kind of stuff. So as far as things like that, like eating when you're in certain emotions, like, is that always bad, or does it depend on, the circumstance? Like if I'm eating because, it's a celebration, it's family reunion, and I'm just eating this whole weekend, I don't care, I'm just going to binge and, eat everything I want to eat. Or if I'm sad and I just feel like I just need to eat because I don't have nothing else to do where I'm sitting at the house. Or even like thinking about quarantine, how much of us, put on the pounds because we were eating in the midst of being in our homes and, all of that. So how is there a good or bad to that? Or is it just like 100% you should never eat from that emotional place, whether it's a good emotion or a bad emotion?
Yeah, it's obviously a balance. Like, it's not to say like, oh, you can never, go crazy and have like a weekend where, you're celebrating something. And so you have like a lot of food, you have sweets, or you go through a breakup and, you're like, you want basically comfort food. Like you want comfort food. Yeah. But just pay attention to when it becomes like a habit, or when, you're feeling sad. And so you're automatically like always reaching for something sweet, or, like that fast food, because for some people it can become a habit to the point of, they're reliant on that for basically like a coping mechanism. And, you can tend to, start to have problems with like your weight, and it can just lead to other issues. So, and balance.
Yeah. So y'all take it easy. Nah, Memorial Day is next,
Memorial
is
Day.
coming up. So
Yep. So go ahead, have some
ready to
barbecue.
barbecue.
I'm not saying right. I'm not
Yeah.
like where like no, you cannot have that Chick-fil-A or because my family will tell you I eat, but I'm also aware of how certain foods make me feel. So I just kind of balance it out. I like to eat healthy stuff that makes me feel good. And I also like to have, my Chick-fil-A or my every now and then. So
yeah. So it's just the mindset, the way that you look at the food, the way you see it, or the relationship that you have with it in certain regards.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Is there anything else outside of food that can affect our mental health that we may not be aware of?
Yeah. So then also physical health. So like how active are you? What's your relationship like with, a gym? Because the same way that food can affect our mood, working out can too. And I know everybody, don't like working out, but just being active, you're like, that's me.
Yes.
But I would tell you, one, you feel better. When you look good, you feel good. So when you're working out, when you're taking care of your body, you will like the results that you get. And that is like a direct correlation to like how you feel. But then also it prevents certain diseases. It prevents, being overweight to the point where you do have certain diseases. And if you're stressed, like working out can help release dopamine. So that's like the feel good hormones in your brain. So it's things that it can like literally, like certain chemicals that it can literally fire up to the point where some people may say like, oh, working out is my therapy. And I have something for that. But basically the sense of when I go to the gym, I enjoy it. I release stress. I feel like I work off certain energy and I feel better afterwards. So I would definitely add that to my routine if I were you, or if you don't enjoy it, just find like something active to do, or maybe do classes where you're with friends, so it's more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say. Because I'm definitely active. Like I'll ride a bike, I'll climb a tree, I'll do that. But it's like going to the gym, and I do. But it's like, like people love this. You being there so excited for life, and I'm like, what is that?
People,
I don't know.
That's why I'm aware of people who are not like me, and because I was an athlete. I played basketball the majority of my life, so I'm used to always working out and being in the gym and things like that. But I am aware that not everybody enjoys it. So I would say just finding things that you do enjoy, like you said, like biking, that is still being active and getting a little workout in there as well.
Okay, cool. Is there anything else major kind of that we do in our everyday lives that could be affecting our mental health that you could think of?
Anything major? I think it depends on like your like daily routines. Like I would encourage you to pay attention to your environment. So what surroundings are you by? Is it a toxic environment? Is it an environment that's helping you grow? What people am I surrounding myself with? Is it negative people who are constantly bringing me down? Is it positive people who kind of see the best in me, or they challenge me to grow? What else? What you're taking in, so not just food, but what you're watching, listening to. All of those things like literally affect your mental health.
Yeah. No, that's a really, really big one, because I think a lot of people don't think about that. Like there are certain things that I don't care how many reviews it got, like I'm not gonna watch this or I'm not gonna listen to that, and call me what you want to call me, but I know me, and that's not good for me. So I think a lot of times people don't understand that really does affect the way that you kind of your attitude and things like that. And it's like sometimes I would like, there was a point in time where I could wake up in the morning and like music wise or TV wise, listen to anything, watch anything, turning on the CNN first thing in the morning and seeing all of this. Like for me, it's like that's too much for me. I need to bring it down. Like in the morning, I can't have all of that in my eyes and my ears and things like that. But there are people, that do that, that like to just, take in anything because they think they can handle that, or they can think, that it's not affecting them any other way, or that they're an adult and they can process or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's something that I can't do that every day
And
and
you're
wake
not
up to that.
alone. Yeah, you are not alone. That's
Yeah.
definitely true. And I would even encourage, like, maybe what's today? Friday. This week
Hmm.
or like the next few days, just pay attention to what is my daily routine like. What am I watching the news and now I'm getting upset because of what they talking about on the news.
Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
affecting your mental health, and what am I kind of like watching or listening to? What am I? So just pay attention to how all of these outside factors affect your mind, affect
Hmm.
your mood, and that's kind of a good start to it.
Yeah. Now that can kind of go also into the realm of like social media, because I'm
Yeah.
sure that's a big one. I don't know how as far as your clients, how often you come across that being an issue, but what can you say to like the power of social media and maybe some things we can take into consideration when we're just like scrolling away and spending our days on our phones?
I would say more so with my teen clients.
Okay. Hmm.
You know, it's more prevalent than like my older adult clients.
Yeah.
But what was that? It was something on Netflix that they made a
Yes, the
documentary about.
what was it called? The Social Dilemma.
Social Dilemma. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it was
was
amazing.
good.
It was
Yeah,
really
that was
good.
pretty good. So I'll
Yeah.
check that out. But it kind of hit on these points, like how they kind of play into the psychology of humans to keep their Instagram booming. So even like with
Mhm.
the notifications, okay, so when we went live, Nia just went live. Dang, let me check out what's going on with that.
Right.
The
Yeah.
likes and like all of that. So that's definitely something you have to be mindful of, and even taking breaks, like social media breaks, just to give your mind a break from all of that constant, because your mind is constantly going. You're paying attention to what
Mhm.
other people are doing, like comparing yourself, your like likes,
Yeah.
posting stuff, comments, to the point where you can miss out on actual like everyday life or um, what's going on around you because you're just caught up in the social media world.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's also something interesting that I've noticed. There have been moments where I've seen people like in public that maybe communicate with me on social media, but in public they're just like they can't,
It's a different,
engage. And it's
yeah,
like it's really weird. It's like I'm a real person right here, like
right.
online.
Really
We
get
can actually have a
comfortable,
real conversation.
right? Because it's
It's so
easier to
crazy.
some extent. It's easier to just like even text. I mean, texting is convenient, but even like versus texting versus like calling or like
Hmm.
FaceTiming or dealing with people in person, you get so conditioned to doing things behind the screen where it's like, oh, we in person, like I don't know what to talk about now, or I don't know how to like interact with you. It seems
Yeah.
weird when
Yeah.
that should be the more natural um, response. So
Yeah, yeah, it's really crazy. And I think even like down to like I've seen like major companies or organizations who like on their website, there's so many like typographical errors and things like that because I think we're so used to like shorthand texting and all
yeah,
of that that we're missing how to even talk
right,
correctly and how to spell and all of that kind of like this stuff is really inundated in us if we let it like really get that way.
for sure.
So that's like really, really crazy. Yeah. So yeah, social media breaks. I am all here for it. My last Instagram page, like the end of last year, had all kind of technical issues and got shut down. And at first I was so stressed out about it. 'Cause I'm like, oh, I gotta do all of this. But after a while, I was like, you know what? It's okay, because I needed to like clean house and like take a deep breath and like regroup and not be like so consumed with this device all the time. So it actually ended up being a really good thing for me. But I do think that that's so necessary to like take those moments and like disconnect and not feel like your life is going to be over or you won't be relevant or no one will care about you if you're not on this thing telling me, what time you ate a peppermint. Like it's going to be all right. We don't need to know all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So yeah, that's really good. So I think now we can kind of talk about like getting back to the counseling therapy space. And we talked a little bit about how to start that process, and we talked about like doing the research and all that. But how do we go about making sure we are in the right counseling or therapy relationship? What does that look like? What should we look for? And how do we assess if we're in a good dynamic as it relates to finding a counselor or therapist?
Yes, great question. So I guess first I'll start with like, how do I go up? Okay, so say you're convinced you want to try therapy. How do I find a therapist? There's a few different ways you can do it. Psychology Today is a pretty good platform to where you can search for a therapist by like race, by gender, specialty areas, because certain therapists, they may specialize in child therapy or addiction or like anxiety, depression. So usually they'll have that listed on their staff page. It'll have like their picture, their title, and then it'll have like treatment areas. And that's all the areas where they are competent in. So you want to make sure, okay, say I need help with anxiety. I will search for somebody who has anxiety under their treatment areas.
Mhm.
So you can do that. You can look for like specific practices in your area. So if you want to do a Google search for counseling centers or private practices near me, go on their page, look at their staff, see if it's someone who has like your treatment area that you're like seeking counseling for. See if they're. So we also have, what do you want to call it, like a mission statement or something to give our potential clients an idea of how we are or our like therapy style. So see if if you feel comfortable with what they say in their little bio paragraph. What else? I would say also.
So what about when they're once you found somebody, so you thinking you're just kind of testing it out? Are there any questions that maybe you can ask them in person that will kind of help you to navigate that? And what if there are any specific questions that you could think of that might be helpful?
Yeah, so specific questions I would ask, what is your like theoretical orientation? And so, well, I don't know, maybe you guys won't know about that, but you're like, what? But so what is your therapy style? Okay, so what does it look like for me to do therapy with you? You could ask about their education. You could ask about their experience, what they feel the most comfortable working with. It's kind of like if you have a doctor for the first time and you want to make sure they legit, and treat your therapist the same way. I had a client who was interviewing me, asking me all these questions to the point where I thought it was funny, but at the same time, I was like, I can't even be mad at her because she wants to know, wants to make sure her therapist, I guess, fit this mold. So anything you feel like you want to know about the therapeutic process, about your therapist in general, is kind of fair game because it's your process. You're paying for it or not paying for it, but it's your process. So make sure whatever questions you have, you ask and just be open about.
Okay. Now, can I ask my therapist, can I ask them to do a certain thing, or like, can I tell them like, this is how I want you to, facilitate these sessions? Is that a thing, or is that something where more so you as a therapist have your own style and you just present that? But I can't necessarily ask of you to like, because if I said like, for example, when people are really stern with me, that kind of helps me, if they're really direct and they don't, sugarcoat, that helps me. Can I give you something like that and allow that to be a part of the way that we communicate in our sessions? Or is it just kind of like, let the therapist do, present themselves how they do and just kind of find your way in that space?
Yeah, you can definitely, that's a good point, actually. You can definitely say something like that. And it's kind of up to the therapist if they feel, if it's something where it's like kind of a request is out there and I know that's not within my like either personality or style, then I will say maybe we aren't the right fit and let me help you find someone else. But if it's something like, okay, I work better when you don't sugarcoat things and you're more stern and you just like tell it like it is, I receive that information better. And I'm like, absolutely, like I can do that. And I've had clients tell me that, like, this, I don't work well with this. I kind of need you to just be honest, confront me if I need it. I'm open to that. And so I take note of that. And that's how I kind of interact with that client. I had one client tell me, it's funny, it was our first session and I'm like asking questions and he's just kind of like giving short answers or just, I don't know, I just feel like it's a disconnect. And so he tells me, like, I don't do well with general questions. And so you have to be like very specific. And I was like, thank you. So as a therapist, we almost want to know information like that because it helps us know how to interact with you better. So when he told me that, I was so happy. Like that made the counseling session for me because I'm like, okay, now I know. Because I was wondering why, like, it doesn't seem like it's kind of going that well. It seems like it's a disconnect, but it was the fact that he didn't do well with general questions and he needed something specific. So from that point on, I knew like I need to like ask him specific questions. And then he's very open, like he was willing to answer anything. It just had to be specific. So
yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know because I think sometimes us as the patient, we're thinking you're the professional, do whatever, just figure it out, fix me, So knowing that you can actually contribute to your own progress by asking like, hey, I need this, I need that, I don't do well with this, or I need, so the things that you are aware of that you can articulate, do that and then allow your therapist to kind of help you navigate through those conversations based on those things.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. We have another question: virtual versus in person. This is a good one. Which is one more effective than the other?
That's a very good question, and it's actually like I'm currently doing all virtual right now, but that's like an ongoing argument, I would say, even with insurance companies right now. It's like what's really effective, virtual, in person, and I think I don't think it's a clear-cut answer to it. I would prefer in person, but there are certain virtual can still be effective, and it could depend on the client whether or not they're comfortable with it. Because some clients will say like, no, I can like only do it in person. I would say give it a shot, give virtual a shot, because you can still make progress and reach your goals and experience healing with virtual sessions as well. There are times when virtual can be more convenient, like during COVID, when people don't be sitting across from another person. Or if like you have a client who travels a lot for work, which like I have a client like that, so he can be in a different state, but still want to continue on with his sessions. And so there are definitely times when virtual comes in handy. So I would say it's more so up to the client and the therapist and see which one you feel more comfortable with. But I would say definitely be open and kind of try both.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I think if nothing else, 2020 has shown us that it's possible to like have successful therapy sessions online, because I'm sure and you've seen like it shot up like in mass number, the amount of people that are utilizing therapy sessions and doing them online because it literally was like the only way that you could.
Right.
So I think that in itself proves that it can be just as effective. It's just a matter of what you prefer, and you just kind of do it until you can do it in person and then try that out and see what fits. But I know for me, virtual is fine because sometimes I forget that I have an appointment. I'm like, I'd have been in traffic, so we're trying to get there. Like, oh man. So it's like, okay, let me just pull up my phone and we can just do this right now in the car. It's fine. So yeah.
And like certain like therapists, they will like in person can be more beneficial in regards to just seeing body language, or virtual, like I can only see up to here.
Yeah.
So you can be, I can be asking you questions, or we can be talking about something and you're like fidgeting, or like, and that's telling me something like, but you can, what do they say? 90% of communication is nonverbal or something.
Yeah.
So your body language and what you're doing is also communicating something to me, and I'm paying attention to that. So when it's virtual, it's kind of limited. It's hard to really tell because I can only see, chest and up or shoulders and up. So definitely pros and cons.
Okay. Is it now, and maybe you don't know, like, is it now regulated to where there's like more like therapy should always be offered virtually and in person? Or is it kind of like it's still whatever the preferences of the therapist? Or have there been any laws that changed or anything surrounding that since COVID?
So there have been a lot more practices are actually like, they started offering virtual sessions when COVID started. And then a lot are saying like, oh, we think we want to keep it because it works out well with a lot of people. And it's just like that convenience factor. So just that open to do both in person and virtual. As far as insurance companies, some insurance companies, they don't know. They feel like, oh, is it as effective? It seems like just a convenience thing. It's easier for the therapist. Are they really doing the same work that they will be doing if it was in person? Some people aren't for it, but for the most part, most practices and centers are open to it, continuing it.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. We can get it any kind of way we can, whatever you need to do. It's resources out there. Okay. So I think this is like definitely been a really helpful conversation for me to kind of get perspective on what your eyes see. So that way I don't hopefully drive my therapist crazy, but I think she all right. But try to like having these conversations to kind of see both sides. If there's anybody else, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, if you have any questions, please drop them in. We're almost done here, but I wanted you all to get the opportunity to ask them. If you want to ask anonymously, you can hit the little question button that's on Instagram. Can't do that on Facebook or YouTube, unfortunately, but if you need to, then that's fine too. And also, I'm going to give you some information on how to connect with Ariel as well. If you want to potentially set up a session with her, I'll give that out towards the end when we're done. I just want to make sure we kind of got into all of my little notes that I had because I had so many different questions. So I can say this. So we've talked about like healthy eating. We've talked about exercise and things like that affect our mental health. Is there anything like, let's say you're in counseling, you're in therapy, that's going good, you're trying to do your best with healthy eating and exercise and all of those things. Are there anything that we can do that are more mindful on a day-to-day for ourselves, whether it's like meditation or journaling? Like, what are some of the things that help even the process of being in therapy that can kind of help you? Like when I come to you for my sessions, I'm able to say, oh, I was, doing this or that, and this came up, and to help that conversation continue to go. Are there any things that you can suggest for that?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, some good ones. Journaling is for sure good. Just like reflecting on certain events that are occurring, or like something that happened during the day that you may not see your counselor until next week, and you don't want to forget this happened. So, you kind of keep a note of that. Meditation works for some people, and for others, it's like, I can't get with it. Like my mind roams. So it definitely takes like practice. But even if you spend some time alone, like have some quiet time, really get to know like yourself. And that comes with the journaling and reflecting. You're kind of just more in tune with like your internal processes. Like there's a lot in the world that we can kind of get distracted with. And so that's definitely a help. And what else? Yeah, I think those are two good things.
Yeah, those are some good ones. Yeah.
I also wanted to address, I don't know if this would classify as like a myth, but I've heard like people say before, like working out is my therapy, or music. Like, I don't know if you've heard that with like musical artists.
Yeah.
Music is my therapy. So I don't need to, I don't need to go to therapy. I don't need that. And I don't know if I really said that at one point before too, but while those things are therapeutic and they can very well, like I'm 100% for bringing creative like things into the therapy session, because I feel like it can help. Talking with an actual professional is something that working out can't talk back to you. Like you can't, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
The actual professional on top of using those things that are therapeutic for you will be a good pairing. So don't just solely think, okay, because I work out, I don't need to go to therapy, or because, I write songs, I do this and that, then I don't need to go to therapy. So.
Yeah, no, that's very true, because I don't know, maybe in passing I've said that before in my life, like music is my therapy. I don't think I have, but I would always, when I hear people say that, it just kind of felt like, but what if what you're doing isn't enough for you? Like, what about the things that you don't know about yourself that you're trying to like think you think you're doing it, you got it going, but there's something else? Because I do think the other part is that our therapists, or they can see things that we don't see. So I could come in and say, my issue is, my kids. They drive me crazy, whatever. And that's it. It's just my kids. But you be like, actually, it's right. Yeah. So it's always more. And I think we limit ourselves by assuming that we have ourselves figured out, because we only know things based on our experiences, things that we've gone through, and the things that we've told ourselves about our experiences. And sometimes there's just a different perspective that can help kind of bring that all in and make more sense so that we can move forward. So I definitely think that, and it's actually is really prevalent, unfortunately, that there are so many things and outlets that you can get and buy and whatever subscribe to take away from the actual benefit of going to counseling and therapy. And I think that it's just really important to know that you can't fix it like that. Like, it's not a one and done, like, oh, let me go to Walmart because they had this thing that this little thing that'll make you not be mad, or like it's like, no, you need to talk to somebody and be okay with that. And I think that kind of goes back to even issues within ourselves that makes us feel like we either can be vulnerable, or that we can figure ourselves out, we can fix it, and just kind of being in that isolated state where no one can tell me anything. I'll just figure it out and it'll be fine my way, and that sort of thing. So I think that's really important to know that therapy is therapy, but there's an element of that you need to have a human conversation.
Yeah.
Because there may be some things that you're doing that you don't realize, and maybe all your friends and family be like, yes, what I've been trying to tell them this for so long, and they never, because we don't always see ourselves, and we don't see how we show up in the world around us. And so sometimes we need somebody to be like, hey, this is the thing that you may want to. And I think, like you said earlier, having an unbiased conversation with someone who doesn't have anything to gain from telling you what you want to hear, or whatever, or they don't have, trying to hurt your feelings or anything. It's not about that. It's somebody that can just come into the space without any of that other stuff happening, and just give you an honest assessment of where you are based on knowing, different signs and symptoms of certain behaviors. So I think that's a really, really important thing that needs to be a lot more spoken on, and known, that, like, bam, you need to talk to somebody. Like, talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna do it yourself.
And at the same time, like, even though like therapy, it can be scary, and like, it takes vulnerability, it takes courage. You can also look at it from a different perspective and say, oh, I'm telling this to like a stranger. Sometimes, I don't know, I feel better. Like, if it's a stranger, sometimes it can be easier to share certain things with them, because like I don't know them. I'm not going to hopefully not like see them around, or like they can't tell my family. Like, therapy is completely confidential. So definitely that's something to know for people who aren't as familiar with therapy. So whatever you share is confidential. By law, we cannot share with anyone else unless like you're suicidal, or like you plan to hurt someone else. That's a different story. We have to seek help for that. But whatever else you share is confidential. So think of it as like your safe space to really let out what you need to let out, and just have that as like a non-judgmental, safe space. And that's what I want all of my clients to feel. So.
Yeah, that's a big one too, because I think people think about it as like, I don't want to tell somebody my business, or a stranger my business, or I told Ray my business and he put it on Facebook, and that kind of thing. Like, a therapist is not going to risk their entire license and their livelihood to tell your tea. Like, it's not worth it. So you're safe in that space.
Yes.
So I think that's really important to know. And actually, Chantel Biddings is on. I don't know if you're still on, but she is an amazing counselor. And this may be off. I don't know what you're doing right now, but if you want to join in and share anything, that would be amazing. If you want to hit the join, because I think now you can have like up to 4 people on a live. If you have anything to contribute to the conversation, if not, thank you for dropping in. But at any time, feel free to like jump in there for sure, because she's like amazing. She has this amazing little like a guided journal kind of thing that she released a while ago, and just kind of helps you to like get your thoughts out. And I purchased it a while ago, and I love it. But she commits. Oh wait, here she's popping in. Let me get her in the conversation real quick. Let's see.
Follow her.
Let's see. I hope I did that right. I think I did. Oh, there she go. Okay.
Hey y'all.
Yay! Hey. Hi.
Wait,
You
I'm
sideways. I don't know. Kind of,
Let me
okay.
see. There we go.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, there you
How
go.
we doing?
Hi, how are you?
Good. I was just enjoying the conversation.
I'm so glad to have you. Because she always drops the nuggets and the wisdom and has the podcast and all kind of stuff going on in her practice. So I mean, honestly, like we're just having an open conversation. You've heard some of the things we've been sharing, but if there's anything that you want to contribute or share, just we've been talking about like the different myths that people have about counseling and therapy and you know, kind of like debunking those things and like things that we can do to enter into that space where we have these you know, taking on and meeting a counselor for ourselves and doing that. So anything that you want to share, please do.
I'm going to share real briefly because you all have said all the really great stuff. But I just like to always suggest to people that you deserve a safe space. Like a lot of times we hear people say you need to go to therapy or somebody needs therapy. And I like to just shift that dialogue just to say, you deserve therapy. You deserve a safe place. You deserve that unbiased person to talk to that is objective, that, as you said, will hold your tea, that's not willing to risk their license to tell somebody your business. But you deserve that safe space to build yourself up, to be better, to be stronger, and then to go out and change the next person.
Yeah, that's good. That's really, really good. And thank you for sharing that, because that's one thing we feel bad about, like going into that space, or like either what's wrong with me or I just need to figure it out. It's not that big of a deal or whatever, but it's a part of getting yourself in a place that you need to be to like to go for it. So that's so true. So I appreciate you even sharing that point. And I'm when we're done, I'm gonna throw up your website so they can look you up too, because she's here in Chicago also. So you can definitely connect with her as well. She's amazing. But thank you for, you know, chiming in and all of that good stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. You all continue. You can bump me up.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye. Yeah. So let me make sure I did that right. I don't know how to click it out. I don't want to hang up on you. Let me see. Nope, it doesn't tell me what to do.
I don't know either.
Okay. Oh wait, I see it. All right. There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, sounds awesome. See, like, and we all out here. Now, don't get me going on the women energy, like out here just healing folks and helping, helping people get it together. You know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful thing. But yeah, I love what she said about that, like deserving that, because I think there's so much, I think, shame and embarrassment that comes along with this sometimes. Not that it's accurate, like it shouldn't be, but I think that's another reason why so many people decide not to or feel like they shouldn't, because it's like admitting that I'm not in a good place or whatever, and it kind of makes people look at it as like a sign of weakness, to the point where they should just like figure it out and not go in therapy because if they find, because especially in our community, unfortunately, for so many years, it's been so stigmatized that we don't, you know, we figure stuff out and that's it. We don't talk about, So I'm glad that that is lifting and that it's being normalized so much more. Definitely since I was like younger, like I didn't even know about therapy until I was like much older, because it was just so much not the thing to do. So I'm glad that the light is being shined on this and how important it is for us all to take care of ourselves, because you can literally be living like in underneath your purpose and not like really fulfilling the fullness of who you are and what you're supposed to do, simply because you haven't had a conversation outside of yourself. Because if you're not mentally in the right headspace, you could be thinking all kind of stuff about yourself, canceling yourself out, you know, dismissing, you know, yourself and your worth and all of that. So I think that it's so important to know that you deserve it, and that there are resources out there that you can utilize and take advantage of and get what you need for you. So I think that's such an amazing and powerful thing. And I thank you even for what you do, because I know it's got to be challenging because you hear so much. You literally are sitting in the midst of people's issues and concerns and burdens and things like that, and you're having to navigate through that and help somebody else. So I think that's amazing to hear. I knew that like therapists they have therapists too. But I think that a lot of people don't think that. It's like, oh, well, if you're a therapist, you got it. Like, you're at the top tier. You don't need anything else, and you figured out life, and that's all it is. But it's like, no. It's needed. Yeah. So I appreciate you and your work and all that. I don't think we have any other questions, but when we're done here, because I think when I go offline, it's not gonna like keep the comments and stuff. So I'll put in the caption the link to where you can connect with Ariel to, like, if you would like to book a session with her, to get connected with her, ask any questions, things like that. And also, while we still have a few people on here, we are going to do a little bit of a raffle. I have 2 books that I want to give away. And these are some books that were suggested by Ariel as well. So I want to, for those that are online, and I'm gonna try to stay focused on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to see, I'm trying to think of like what y'all can do to like get in the raffle. Just if you're here and you're watching, let's see, do you have a question you think we could ask? Like a general question that we could pop in there, maybe to get the to see who's out there listening and tuned in. Let's see. Okay, I got one. Okay. What is one thing that you have overcame or that you are hoping to overcome throughout the rest of this year? So what's one challenge, something, one area? It doesn't have to be super deep. You ain't got to tell us your business, but just like something that you're looking forward to growing in, or something that you have or that you're working towards or something like that. Drop that in. Drop it in the chat. And then I have another question I'm gonna ask you too. Drop those in the chat, and then I'm gonna see who's going to get these books. Y'all don't be scared. And if you don't want to say anything, like just give me like a thumbs up or a heart emoji. We could do that too. Just to make it fair. So I'm gonna let y'all drop those in, and I'm gonna I have another question for you, Ariel, that just popped up. Oh, can you see that?
How can you balance your spiritual counseling and your traditional counseling? How do you accept therapy I can't see the rest of it?
Yeah, I think it ran out of characters. Well, if you want to add the rest of your question, Private Collections Inc., because we only see up to the first sentence. I don't see how do you accept therapy if, I don't know what that part is. But maybe the question is, yeah, go ahead with that part.
How can you balance your spiritual counseling and your traditional counseling? So how can you balance your spiritual counseling? I guess that depends on, what their spiritual counseling is kind of telling you. I guess I would kind of need clarification in regards to like the difference between the two. I know there are like Christian counselors out there. So if that's like very important to you and you wanted to make sure the therapist that you go to is a Christian, you can specifically search for that. And so that way you won't feel like you kind of need both. Because that's what I'm kind of gathering from the question. Like you get a spiritual counselor and then you also see a traditional counselor. So I'm just thinking that would be kind of easy.
So do you think that there is, can I have both in one, or should I maybe seek out just general counseling at some point, because the Christian counseling, maybe doesn't get into some of the more practical things? Is there such a thing, or is it possible to have both in one and it still be beneficial?
Yeah, it's definitely possible to have both in one, but I would just encourage you to ask your therapist like more questions in regards to what you're looking for this side, for the spiritual side. If you're like talking about like spiritual gifts and like things like that, I can see how you may want to separate like just spiritual mental, or whatever you call it, and then just like your therapist. So it kind of depends on a lot of different factors. So I would say yes, if it's getting to the point where it's like confusing, or if you feel that if I feel that we are in different places spiritually. I think that one.
Okay. Okay, so maybe like if you're seeing a counselor who has like a spiritual background or whatever, but maybe you're in another place and they don't necessarily maybe believe in certain aspects of it or whatever.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then I would suggest, somebody who you feel like is in that same place, or is in a place that they can help you like grow spiritually. You can definitely feel free, but I would just kind of pay attention to like if it's ever getting confusing or feeling like it's too much different information that you're getting. Just pay attention to like how you're balancing both. It's definitely
and I'll say to that point too, because that was something that I was debating about at one point, like should I do one versus the other? And I think that there is you can definitely find both in one, but if you feel like who you're currently with is not necessarily serving that area, then you can keep in mind that if you are like, whether you're in a church or whatever your spiritual background is, like use those resources. If you feel like you're being taught certain principles where you are and you're happy and with that, like let that be where you get the spiritual understanding and guidance from. And then if you need to see someone professionally, just strictly in the area of counseling for whatever, then do that. So you don't have to feel like I have to have somebody that is directly connected to my spiritual background in order to pursue this counseling relationship. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but is that kind of the thing? Like you can have just someone that's just strictly here to serve in that counseling space, deal with these issues, and then I can just go to my church or whatever and get what I need from that space.
Yeah, you can definitely do that, and then just even making sure like whoever like is giving you that spiritual guidance. Sometimes people will kind of downplay the traditional counseling, or like certain theories or what you're learning. So I would just kind of make sure that both are for your growth in both areas, or at least like your spiritual counselor is also for like your growth that you do with your traditional counselor. Because if you do want to go in depth with spiritual growth and you want to like discuss a lot of things, and then you also have like past issues or like current goals you're working on, it can become a lot, maybe to the point that you need like maybe an hour and a half session, or you need 2 sessions a week. So you can get creative with it, but it's definitely possible.
Okay. That's a really good question too, that I think comes up a lot as well. So yeah, this was good. I don't think there are any more questions, and I think you all were nervous. No one wanted to pop into the chat,
win a raffle.
but I'm gonna randomly pull some people later for to get his book away.
Yes, asked a question though.
Yeah. There have been some really good questions too. So at this point, like I said, I'm going to give Ariel's information. You can actually go to the link that's in my Instagram bio right now, and that'll link you to where you can book a session and get some more information about what it is that she has going on and all of that. And yeah, overall, you all just be encouraged to seek out what you need for you, and to grow and learn and be okay with doing what you need to do for you. That's totally an okay thing. And don't feel like you have to carry the weight of everything else. Because that's one thing I think also we feel like I have to manage so many things. I could be at the the bottom of the list because it's just so much going on, so much that I need to do. But like yeah, you have to take care of yourself first so that you can be effective to whoever or whatever else is around you. And also, it's something I was going to ask you, but it's escaping me right now. But if it pops up, I'm going to say it. But I did want to say to those that are watching, one of the other reasons why I decided to do this was because I created a music project at the end of last year. I wasn't planning to, but it's called Words and Sounds to Quarantine To. And I created it because for me, I was trying to navigate through my own dealings with like being in a pandemic and what that looked like for me. And so it came out in the form of music. And then from there, I made a short film, and that link is in my bio too. If you all want to look it up, if you want to get the soundtrack or watch the film, please do. Not saying that because I think I'm the bomb. Like, I mean, it's good. I'm not going to, it is really good. But when I released it, I was really amazed at how many people really wanted to have that conversation about mental health after watching it. It really opened up a lot of conversation. And so I wanted to do things like this to kind of bring that to the forefront and just to kind of keep the conversation going. So you all can definitely connect with me, follow me on Instagram or wherever else to stay in tune with what I'm doing with the project, because I'm still doing a lot of things with it, and to just check it out, and hopefully that it encourages and inspires you as well. You see that? I think I see the question coming in there. You see it?
I'm working on being present for me. Since I've been there for others for so long, I'm going to be okay with being there for me. Most definitely. Don't put yourself on a back burner, because it's only like holding things in for so long. It's going to come out maybe in ways that aren't like the healthiest. So definitely prioritize like your own self, your mental health, your health in general, because you definitely deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I thought about what I was going to ask you. So my question is, like, in the counseling therapy space, should your counselor, because I've heard that there's a different approach, because sometimes I think we look at like for example, in Ayanla Van Zandt, right? Who's very hands-on and has like these different ways that she goes about like taking people through these types of things. I won't ask you to give your personal opinion on all of that unless you want to, but I think that some people look for that. Like, specifically, I want to go to counseling, and you're going to tell me exactly what I need to do and how it needs to happen and what I need to. So where is the line, maybe, as far as a counselor giving practical, steps or wisdom as far as maybe what needs to happen or where we're at? Or should we expect the counseling process to just give us the ability to open up more and be more in touch with the way that we think? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I won't give my 2 cents on her specifically, but there's just the whole idea of like telling people specifically like you need to do this. I'm always kind of careful of my wording, like how I communicate things, what specific words I use, because I don't want it to get to a point where the client is like, oh, my therapist, because some people will like, oh, my therapist said I need to do this, or I just being overly controlling. So I still want to give my professional opinion and help, but also leave some room for my client to be themselves and to maybe communicate it in a different way, or have their own touch to it. I never want to get to a point where they're just like doing what I say. Like, you have to do everything I say and it has to be this way. Because that's not healthy. So
Okay, that's good. So that's good to know when we're like in that setting and we're trying to see whether or not a counselor is for us, keeping in mind that it's not like a dictatorship or someone telling you do this or do that. Otherwise, you gonna be
right. Like it has to be this way, things like that.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, yeah, this was an amazing conversation. I'm so excited that we were able to do this. And I hope that everyone who has watched has got something really powerful out of it. You all can definitely go back and watch the replay once I get it back, loaded and running and all of that. And again, you can go to the link in my bio. You can go there now and you'll be able to connect with Ariel and all of that. And you can also watch the replay of this later, like I said. And even the other counselor that popped in, I'm going to drop her information in the caption once I load this up in case anybody wanted to look her up, because she has some amazing resources. Like I said, she has a book, she has a podcast, and she does just different little pop-up check-ins on social media and things like that. So that'll be a great resource for you as well. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, that is all we have for tonight. Thank you so much for being a part of this series. Thank you, Ariel, for your time and for sharing your insight and your wisdom. And congratulations on everything that you're doing and that you'll continue to do. And thank you again for all that you do in the pursuit of keeping our minds together and all of that stuff.
Thank you.
So you are
providing this platform and talking about it. I was so excited when you told me you were doing it, and just as a musical artist and just being so open to like mental health and talking about it through your art, through like songs and continuing a conversation. So I'm just so glad you're doing it. I'm so excited, and definitely continue the conversation. Even after May is up, continue the conversation.
Yes. That's the point. That's the plan. Yes. Thank you for that. I want to make sure. I think I'm gonna Private Collections Inc. has been like contributing a lot of questions and all of that. And so I'm definitely going to make sure you get a book. And I want to make sure there wasn't any other questions. I think we're good. But thank you all again for tuning in.